Hello YouTube, Mr. Malin here, and I'm going to be doing a story time with you today. I have to admit it was really tricky to try and find a book that would go with our muck, mess and mixtures topic. I know we're doing George's Marvellous Medicine, but I don't want to read that because I don't want to give you spoilers and spoil the story for you. So I thought, what book could I do that would go with our topic, muck, mess and mixtures? And I thought, David Walliams must have done a book about muck, mess and mixtures. He loves all disgusting and gross stuff. So I had a look and he's written a book called Slime. So I'm going to be reading the book Slime to you. You don't need to do anything for this. All you need to do is just sit back, relax and enjoy the story. So I'm going to start by reading with a prologue, and it says, a brief history of slime. Slime is one of the greatest mysteries of the world, if not the greatest. It beats the creation of Stonehenge, laughs in the face of the power of the pyramids, and takes a giant slimy plop on the Loch Ness Monster. Slime. What is it? Where is it? Who is it? How is it? And why is it? Children demand to know where slime came from, and grown-ups are desperate to know if it is ever coming back. For the first time in history, the legend of slime can finally be told. All will be revealed in this book, which might be the most important book ever written. Some experts believe that slime dates back millions of years. Their theory is that when the earth was made, it was nothing more than a sea of slime, and out of that slime came more slime, and out of that slime came even more slime. Then of course out of that slime came even more slime. It remained buried under the earth for billions of years, until now. Others suppose that at the dawn of time, a giant meteor of slime crash-landed into the earth. On impact, billions of gallons of slime exploded into the air, covering every living thing in thick, creepy slime. Now this explains why the dinosaurs died out. They got slimed. There is another theory that many years ago, slime-based aliens from a slime-based planet, the planet Slime, flew in a slime-based spaceship to the Earth. Once on Earth, they taught ancient civilizations all about slime, how to construct buildings out of slime, the best recipes to cook with slime, and most importantly, how to make socks out of slime. Then the slime-based aliens got in their slime-based spaceship and whizzed back to their slime-based planet, their planet Slime, and they never came again. But they left the secret of slime with the human race, so children could torment grown-ups with it forever. The truth is rather different. Slime was actually created more than 50 years ago on a remote island, the Isle of Mulch to be precise. It is situated in the middle of the great northeast southwestern sea between the islands of Twaddle and Stench. How do I know all this? Well, because I just made it all up. Chapter 1. Mulch. The little Isle of Mulch was home to less than 1,000 people. Well, 999 to be precise. I told you it was less than 1,000. One of these 999 people was a boy named Ned. Ned wasn't short for anything, he was just called Ned. Ned was 11 years old, and he'd been born on Mulch, and like most of the islanders, he had never left. To say Ned was just an ordinary boy would be wrong. He wasn't ordinary, he was extraordinary. Ned had been born with legs that didn't work. He couldn't walk at all. So was found a battered, old, rusty wheelchair, and he learned to use it. The boy could often be seen whizzing around the island in his wheelchair, doing stunts and wheelies to delight his friends. "I got the zoomies!" he would cry as he whizzed past. Home for Ned was a tiny, weather-beaten old cottage. The cottage perched on the edge of a cliff overlooking the raging sea that surrounded the island. From dawn until dusk, Ned's mother and father were out of the house at work. Dad was a fisherman, so was away at sea all day on his fishing boat. Mum sold the fish Dad caught at the island's market. The only fish you could catch around the Isle of Mulch was called shoe fish. They were fish shaped like shoes. There's a picture of them there. They tasted like shoes too. The overriding flavour was foot sweat, but the locals became used to the taste, disgusting though it was. They had no choice. Needless to say, both Ned's parents absolutely stank of fish. But Ned didn't see or even smell much of them, as the pair were always working. Instead, the boy was left home alone with his older sister. Jemima resented Ned deeply. She really didn't like him. She might have been the older one, but it was her younger brother who got all the attention. The girl wore pretty little flowery dresses with huge steel-capped boots, and she wasn't afraid to use them. Ned's aunt owned the Isle of Mulch, and she was his mother's much older sister, and her name was Greta Greed. High on a hill overlooking the whole island squatted Kitty Litter Castle, a huge medieval fortress that the lady called home. It was a world away from the tiny cottage that Ned shared with his family. Greed lived there alone, which is how she liked it. Her only company was her 101 cats. These cats were fearsome beasts. She had them to scare nasty little children away. The lady loathed children, especially her poor nephew Ned. Aunt Greta never ever did a thing to help him. For her, children ruined her Isle of Mulch with their games, their chatter, and worst of all, their stench. Aunt Greta should be the last person to complain about a smell, as she stank of cat wee. Because Aunt Greta owned the entire island, she had power over all those that lived there. The lady rewarded those grown-ups on Mulch who detested children almost as much as she did. One such man was Sir Walter Raff. He was a nasty old wretch whom Greed had made headmaster of the only school on the island. Mulch School for Revolting Children. The only thing that gave Raff pleasure was expelling children from his school. Like so many others, Ned had suffered that fate. There was one toy shop on the island. Greed had given care of it to twin brothers Edmund and Edmund Envy. They had named the shop Envy's Emporium, but it was nothing more than a front for terrorising children. Ned had a particularly nasty time when he'd last visited. Another resident of Mulch was Madame Silenzio Sloth. The lady was supposed to be a piano teacher, but she was too lazy to teach children anything. She was a virtuoso of cruelty. Ned had the misfortune of being one of her pupils, and when he dared to complain, all hell broke loose. Captain Pride was an uptight ex-soldier whom Greed had appointed Mulch's park keeper. The captain ensured no one could ever enjoy the island's only public park, especially not little people like Ned. Ice cream sellers Glenn and Glenda Glutton made sure children never got to enjoy an ice cream ever. The married couple zoomed around the island in their van looking for children to rob. They took their pocket money, then sped off without giving them their ice cream. If the Gluttons had lived anywhere else in the world, other than Mulch, they would have been locked up in prison, and they'd have thrown away the key. However, Greed delighted in their scam, and ensured the pair were never brought to justice, even when they stole from her own nephew, Ned. So this little island was home to a large number of horrible grown-ups, but there was a child on the island who was probably as bad. Poor Ned was related to her. It was his sister. Ned's sister, Jemima, liked nothing more than playing horrid tricks on her little brother. Tricks that made the girl giggle to herself all day and all night. It wasn't a nice giggle, it was a nasty giggle, as if she knew she was being beastly. The tricks were all absolutely foul, dropping wiggly waggly worms down the back of her little brother's pyjamas, replacing Ned's toothpaste with glue so his teeth stuck together, emptying the jar of his favourite marmalade and replacing it with mashed up wasps, painting everything in her little brother's room bright purple, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, his toys and clothes, even his pet gerbil, hiding a big furry spider at the end of his bed so it nibbled his toes, dusting the toilet seat with chili powder so the boy's bottom was too hot, swapping Ned's favourite chocolate-coated raisins with gerbil droppings, breaking wind into an old wooden box for a week, then opening it in Ned's bedroom so he would suffer the pong. However, all of this was nothing compared to the nightmarish trick Jemima was planning for her little brother. Chapter 2. Gunk. Jemima was a child who revelled in all things yucky, not just spiders and worms, but gooey things too. All around the little cottage where the family lived, the girl had hidden gunk in jars. Things you found under rocks, things you found at the bottom of ponds, things you found lurking down the plug hole. Jemima would scoop up anything nasty and deposit it into a jar. And over time she collected hundreds and hundreds of jars of all different kinds of gunks. Every single one had a label on it so Jemima could remember what was what. Starting to shudder to think how the girl collected some of those revolting things. You wouldn't want to touch this stuff with your bare hands. There was frog spawn, snail trail, granny dribble, foot cheese, pigeon poop, old man's phlegm, toenail grot, jellyfish slippery sludge, underarm sweat, and who even knows what's in this one of the skull and crossbones. Yuck. Even more, off custard, furballs, stinging nettle juice, gerbil wee, that weird yellow stuff that ladybirds leave on your finger, belly button fluff, earwax, wet bottom burps, eel, crushed caterpillars, spider sick, very mouldy mould, slug juice, bat eggs, and something unspeakable that cannot be named. I don't want to know what that is. At the bottom of every wardrobe, at the back of every cupboard, under the floorboards, there were jars and even more jars. Jemima was stockpiling them in the family cottage as she wanted to play the most humongous trick on her little brother. A trick that would make him scream the house down. A scream that would echo all over the Isle of Mulch forever. Jemima would giggle herself to sleep thinking about her devilish plan. But there was just one problem. Her little brother was onto her. Chapter 3. Bogies under the bed. Ned found the jars, just one jar at first, in a deep sleep. Ned had rolled off his bed in the dead of night. Boom! Ouch! The fall woke him up. Just as he was about to haul himself back up, Ned noticed something shining in the darkness under his bed. He reached out and found it was a jar. The label, in his sister's scrawled handwriting, read Bogies. On closer inspection, he discovered it really was a jar, bursting with bogies. They looked very much like Jemima's bogies. She'd picked and flicked so many at Ned over the years that he could recognise them in any lineup in an instant. They were always a brownish shade of green. At once, Ned knew his wicked sister was up to something. But why had she hidden her own bogies in a jar under his bed? Lifting up the sheets, he saw that this was just one of what must have been 100 jars under there, each containing something more disgusting than the last. Ned's eyes bulged as he read the labels. Ground ants, boiled dandruff, yellow pus, sludge, browny yellow pus, spicy burps, burpy burps, monkey sweat, wart soup, toad juice, purple gunge, or punge, 10-year-old trifle that had gone too fuzzy, it will blow your head off. Something even more unspeakable than the other unspeakable thing that cannot ever be named. One by one, Ned pulled all the jars out from under his bed. He was careful not to clink them together. The sound would wake up his wicked sister, who was sleeping in the room next door. Then Ned hoisted himself up onto his battered old wheelchair so he could go hunting for more jars. One good thing about getting around on wheels is that you can glide silently and undetected. As long as you don't bump into the furniture, donk, or run over a cat, meow. Ned rolled past his sister's bedroom and headed into the living room. Now, thought Ned, where would be good hiding places? It turned out everywhere. There were jars and more jars of yucktastic stuff hidden all over the room. Under the sofa, behind the curtains, on top of the bookshelf, on the sideboard, under the cushions, behind the plant pot, inside the lampshade, under the coffee table. The same was true of the kitchen and the hallway. So rolling past the boiler cupboard, Ned heard some gurgling, gurgle, 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 and on opening the doors, he could see jars and jars with gunk oozing out of them. The heat from the boiler must have made the gunk expand. It was a wonder that one of the jars hadn't exploded. Once again, all the jars were labelled, each full of something more puzzling than the last. What was all this stuff? There were things labelled with Miggle, Piffle-Paffle, Noodle, Boo-Boo, Muppety, Zonty Wonty Wooba, Bim Bam Booty. And more importantly, What was she planning to do with it all? The boy approached his mother and father's room. He peeped through the gap in the door. Their bed was empty. It was the early hours of the morning and the pair were already at work. No doubt Dad was heading out to sea and Mum was setting up her market stall. A quick search by Ned at the back of their wardrobe revealed jars, jars, and more jars. Curiouser and curiouser, he muttered to himself. Then the boy rolled back into the hall, making his way towards his dreaded sister's bedroom. Ned was sure somewhere in there would be the answer. He put his ear up against the door. Jemima was fast asleep, snoring like a steam train. The sign of her bedroom door read, "Entry strictly forbidden. Any unauthorised persons who go beyond this point will get a boot up the backside." Now was Ned's chance. The boy took a deep breath, and as quietly as he could, he opened the door and gently rolled himself inside. The boy hadn't been allowed in his sister's bedroom for years. No wonder she kept everything out. Her room was full to bursting with jars and jars and more jars of gunk. There must have been thousands, maybe thousands and thousands of jars in there. And all the way from the floor to the ceiling. No wonder Jemima had resorted to hiding the jars all over the house. There was no more room in her room. It was a miracle she could even get in and out. As Ned watched his sister sleep, noting that she wore her steel-capped boots in bed, he scanned her bedroom for clues. There must be an answer somewhere to what she planned to do with all these jars of gunk. In the corner of the room where Jemima's school exercise books were, Ned knew that his sister never did a scrap of work at school, so why were there exercise books? He was surprised to see how well thumbed the books looked. Upon opening them, Ned discovered that they weren't full of schoolwork at all. Oh no, they were full of plans for the diabolical trick she was about to play on him. And I think we'll leave it there for now. So I hope you enjoyed that year two, and hopefully I'll be back soon to read you a bit more of the story. Have a great rest of the day. Well done today for working so hard, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.